HOA President Karen Williams moved into my boathouse claiming it was abandoned property after I left for an hour. She brought furniture, a sound system, and filed fake ownership papers. So I started the motor and took her for an unwilling ride to the middle of the lake. Before watching full story, comment below from where you watching, also like and subscribe for more stories. I never thought someone would just move into my boathouse without asking, but Karen Williams proved that HOA presidents think they own everything. My name is Danny Rodriguez and I live on the shore of Crystal Lake in northern Michigan. 5 years ago, I bought a small cabin with 50 feet of lakefront property that came with an old boathouse. The boathouse isn't much to look at from the outside, just weathered wood and a tin roof, but it's sturdy and sits on pontoons that let it float on the water. The previous owner used the boathouse to store his fishing boat and tackle. When I bought the property, I converted it into a perfect little retreat. I added electricity, a small kitchen area, a comfortable bed, and even a tiny bathroom. It became my favorite place to relax after long work weeks. The boathouse is completely self-contained and can be moved anywhere on the lake using a small outboard motor attached to the back. I love taking it to quiet coves where I can fish and enjoy the peace of the water. Everything was perfect until Lakeshore Estates built their fancy development on the other side of the lake. Lakeshore Estates was one of those expensive communities where every house cost over $1 million and came with its own dock. The residents were mostly wealthy retirees and business executives who wanted lakefront luxury without any of the work that comes with lake living. The development came with an HOA that had rules about everything: what color your dock could be, what size boat you could own, even what time you were allowed to start your boat engines in the morning. The HOA president was Karen Williams, a 60-year-old woman who had made millions in real estate and thought money gave her the right to control everyone around the lake. Karen drove a white Cadillac Escalade, wore designer clothes to the grocery store, and treated service workers like they were beneath her. I first encountered Karen 6 months after Lakeshore Estates opened. I was floating my boathouse near the public boat ramp, fishing for bass in the shallow water, when I saw a woman in high heels and a business suit standing on the dock waving at me. I paddled my kayak over to see what she wanted. "Excuse me," she called out in a voice that could cut glass. "Are you the owner of that structure?" She was pointing at my boathouse like it was something disgusting floating in the water. "Yes ma'am, that's my boathouse. I'm Danny Rodriguez. Is there something I can help you with?" Karen looked at my boathouse with obvious disapproval. "That eyesore is completely inappropriate for Crystal Lake. It's destroying the aesthetic value of our community." I was confused. "Ma'am, it's just a boathouse. I use it for fishing and relaxation. It's an unsightly floating shack that violates every standard of lakefront development. It needs to be removed immediately." "I'm sorry, but this is a public lake. I have riparian rights as a lakefront property owner. I can moor my boathouse anywhere on the water." Karen pulled out a folder from her expensive purse and showed me an official-looking document. "Actually, the Lakeshore Estates Community Standards Agreement establishes aesthetic guidelines for all structures visible from our development. Your floating shanty violates multiple regulations." I looked at the document, which was full of rules about maintaining visual harmony and protecting property values. "Ma'am, I don't live in your development. Your HOA rules don't apply to my property or my boathouse." Karen smiled like she was talking to a child. "Mr. Rodriguez, when you own lakefront property, you accept responsibility for maintaining the lake's overall aesthetic standards. Your structure negatively impacts our entire community. That's not how property rights work. You can't control what other people do with their legal property just because you don't like how it looks." Karen's smile disappeared. "We'll see about that, Mr. Rodriguez. The Lakeshore Estates HOA has significant resources and influence. We don't allow problems to persist." She walked back to her Escalade, leaving me wondering what kind of trouble an HOA president could possibly cause for someone who didn't even live in her community. I found out soon enough. Over the next month, Karen launched a campaign of harassment that escalated from annoying to dangerous. She started by filing complaints with every government agency she could find. She reported my boathouse to the county as an illegal floating structure. The inspector came out, looked at my permits, and told me everything was legal. She reported me to the state environmental agency for polluting the lake with residential waste. They investigated and found no violations. She reported me to the Coast Guard for operating an unseaworthy vessel. They inspected my boathouse and confirmed it met all safety requirements. Every complaint was investigated and dismissed, but dealing with the constant stream of inspectors was ruining my peaceful lake experience. Karen also began pressuring other lake residents to complain about my boathouse. She organized meetings where she explained how my floating shack was hurting everyone's property values. Some Lakeshore Estates residents started approaching me when I was fishing, demanding that I remove my boathouse because it was ruining their view. A few even threatened to call the police if I didn't move my boathouse away from their side of the lake, not understanding that public lakes don't have private sections. The harassment escalated when Karen hired a lawyer and threatened to sue me for maintaining a public nuisance. Her lawyer sent me a letter demanding that I either remove my boathouse from the lake or face legal action. The letter was completely baseless, but defending against a lawsuit would cost me thousands of dollars I needed for cabin maintenance. I was starting to think about just selling my property and moving somewhere without crazy HOA presidents. Then Karen made the mistake that changed everything. In August, during the busiest weekend of the summer, I took my boathouse to a quiet cove on the far side of the lake for some peaceful fishing. I planned to stay for 3 days enjoying the solitude and catching dinner. On Sunday morning, I woke up early and paddled my kayak to shore to gather firewood. When I returned an hour later, I couldn't believe what I saw. Karen Williams was standing on my boathouse deck wearing a pink bikini and designer sunglasses, directing 2 men who were carrying furniture from a speedboat onto my floating retreat. "Hey!" I shouted as I paddled closer. "What are you doing on my boathouse?" Karen looked at me like I was interrupting her vacation. "Mr. Rodriguez, I'm claiming this structure under the lake's abandoned property provisions." Abandoned property? I was gone for an hour. According to maritime law, any floating structure left unattended for more than 6 hours is considered abandoned and can be claimed by the first person to occupy it. I had never heard of such a law, and I was pretty sure Karen was making it up. That's completely ridiculous. You can't just steal someone's boathouse. I'm not stealing anything. I'm legally claiming abandoned property for the benefit of the Lakeshore Estates community. The 2 men Karen had hired finished moving a table, chairs, and a portable bar onto my boathouse deck. They were setting up what looked like a floating party platform. "Get off my property right now," I demanded. "This is no longer your property, Mr. Rodriguez. I've filed the appropriate paperwork with the county claiming this structure as abandoned lakefront property." I pulled out my phone and called the sheriff's department. "This is Danny Rodriguez at Crystal Lake. Someone has illegally occupied my boathouse and is claiming they own it. I need an officer here immediately." "Sir, is this a civil dispute or a criminal matter?" "It's theft. This woman just moved into my floating house and is claiming she owns it. We'll send someone out, but it might take a while. We're busy with summer weekend calls." While I waited for the police, Karen and her hired help continued setting up their illegal occupation of my boathouse. They brought out a sound system, started playing music, and even hung a banner that said Lakeshore Estates VIP area. Other boaters began stopping to see what was happening. Word spread quickly around the lake that the HOA president had taken over someone's boathouse. "Karen," I called out, "the police are coming. You need to get off my property before you're arrested for trespassing." "I have documentation proving my legal claim to this abandoned structure," she replied, waving some papers she had pulled from her purse. An hour later, Deputy Johnson arrived in a patrol boat. He was a young officer who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else than mediating a boathouse dispute. "What's the situation here?" he asked. "Officer, this woman has illegally occupied my boathouse and is claiming she owns it," I explained. "Ma'am," Deputy Johnson said to Karen, "do you have documentation showing you own this structure?" Karen handed him the papers she had been waving around. "I've claimed this abandoned property under maritime salvage laws. Mr. Rodriguez left it unattended, which constitutes abandonment under state statute." Deputy Johnson read the documents, which looked official but made no sense. "Ma'am, these appear to be HOA forms, not legal property transfers. Do you have actual ownership documents?" "These are the appropriate legal documents for claiming abandoned lakefront property. Ma'am, you can't just move into someone else's property and claim you own it. Mr. Rodriguez has registration and insurance documents proving he owns this boathouse." Karen's confident expression started to crack. "Officer, I'm the president of the Lakeshore Estates HOA. I know what I'm legally entitled to do. Being an HOA president doesn't give you the right to take other people's property. You need to remove your belongings and leave this boathouse immediately." "I refuse. I have established legal occupancy." "Ma'am, if you don't leave voluntarily, I'll have to arrest you for trespassing." Karen crossed her arms and sat down in one of the chairs her helpers had brought. "I'm not leaving. This is now Lakeshore Estates community property." Deputy Johnson looked at me apologetically. Mr. Rodriguez, I can arrest her for trespassing, but it might be easier if you just moved your boathouse away from here. That's when I got the idea that would solve my Karen problem permanently. Officer, if she wants to stay on my boathouse, that's fine. But I'm going to exercise my right as the owner to relocate my property. I climbed onto the boathouse and started the small outboard motor attached to the back. The pontoons that supported the structure made it basically a slow-moving boat that I could drive anywhere on the lake. What are you doing? Karen demanded as the boathouse started moving away from shore. I'm taking my boathouse for a ride. Since you've decided to make yourself at home, you can come along for the trip. Stop this immediately. I demand you return to shore. Karen, you claimed this was abandoned property that you legally owned. If it's your property now, you should be happy that it's getting some exercise. I steered the boathouse toward the middle of Crystal Lake, which was over a mile from the nearest shore. The water was deep, the waves were choppy, and there was no way for Karen to get off without swimming. This is kidnapping. Karen shouted over the sound of the motor. This is property ownership, I replied. You wanted my boathouse, so now you get to experience everything that comes with it. Deputy Johnson followed us in his patrol boat, probably wondering how a simple trespassing call had turned into a floating hostage situation. Mr. Rodriguez, he called out through his boat speaker, you need to return to shore immediately. Officer, I'm just exercising my property rights. This woman claimed my boathouse was hers, so I'm showing her what ownership responsibilities look like. By now, other boaters were following our strange parade across the lake. Some were taking pictures and videos of the HOA president being taken for an involuntary boat ride. When we reached the middle of the lake, I shut off the motor and dropped anchor. We were now floating in 60 feet of water, at least half a mile from shore in any direction. This is where I like to do my best fishing, I announced. Since you're living here now, you might as well learn to appreciate the local wildlife. Karen was standing at the edge of the boathouse deck, looking at the deep water with obvious terror. Her designer bikini and sunglasses looked ridiculous in the middle of a lake. I want to go back to shore right now, she demanded. I thought you own this place now. Don't you want to enjoy your new property? I was wrong. This is still your boathouse. I was trespassing. I'm sorry. Karen, are you saying you don't actually own my boathouse? Yes. I don't own it. It belongs to you. Please take me back to shore. Deputy Johnson pulled his patrol boat alongside the boathouse. Ma'am, do you want to press charges against Mr. Rodriguez for kidnapping? Karen looked at the deep water surrounding us, then at the deputy, then at me. No charges. This was all a misunderstanding. I just want to go home. And you acknowledge that this boathouse belongs to Mr. Rodriguez? Yes. It's his property. I was wrong to be here. I started the motor and headed back toward shore, but I took the long way around the lake to make sure Karen fully appreciated her boathouse experience. By the time we returned to the boat ramp, word of Karen's floating adventure had spread throughout the lake community. Dozens of people were waiting to see the HOA president who had tried to steal someone's boathouse and ended up stranded in the middle of the lake. Karen climbed off the boathouse as quickly as possible and practically ran to her Escalade without saying another word. Deputy Johnson helped me secure the boathouse to the dock. Mr. Rodriguez, I probably should write you a citation for something, but I can't figure out what law you actually broke. Officer, I just took my own property for a boat ride. The fact that a trespasser was aboard wasn't my responsibility. The video of Karen's unwilling boat ride went viral on social media. HOA president stranded on stolen boathouse became a trending topic, with thousands of people sharing the footage and commenting on the justice of seeing an entitled HOA president get exactly what she deserved. The Lakeshore Estates HOA board held an emergency meeting and voted unanimously to remove Karen as president. They also issued a public apology for her illegal and embarrassing actions, and promised that the HOA would never again interfere with legal activities on the public lake. Karen faced criminal charges for trespassing and filing false reports. She was convicted and sentenced to community service, which included cleaning public boat ramps around the county. More importantly, she was ordered to pay for the damage her hired help had caused to my boathouse when they moved their furniture on and off the deck. The new HOA president was a retired Coast Guard officer who understood that public lakes belong to everyone, not just expensive developments. He actually became friends with many of the longtime lake residents that Karen had been harassing. My boathouse became a local celebrity. Tour boats would point it out as the famous floating house that taught an HOA president about property rights. I started getting requests from other lake residents who wanted to rent it for peaceful getaways. But the best part was the effect Karen's humiliation had on other pushy HOA presidents in the area. Word spread quickly about what happened when you tried to steal someone's property just because you didn't like how it looked. Other lakefront HOAs suddenly became much more respectful of property rights and much less interested in controlling activities on public water. My boathouse is still floating peacefully on Crystal Lake, still painted the same colors that Karen found so offensive. I use it regularly for fishing trips and quiet retreats, and nobody from any HOA has bothered me since Karen took her involuntary boat ride. Sometimes the best way to deal with someone who thinks they own everything is to show them what it really means to be responsible for property in the middle of a lake. Karen Williams moved into my boathouse without asking, thinking she could steal it using fake legal claims. Instead, she got a free boat ride that ended her HOA career and became a viral video watched by millions of people. The moral of the story is simple. If you're going to claim someone else's floating property as your own, make sure you're prepared for wherever that property might decide to go.